Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Whitey and Will Sports Show. This is episode number 41. It is Sunday, August 7th, and it's been a little while. Been about 3 weeks, maybe even 3.5 weeks since the last time we recorded a show. But we got a guest lined up, and the school year's getting ready to get going again. So we thought it's time to get another show recorded. And nice enough to join us today from Effingham High School, the activities director at Effingham High School, Dave Woltman. Nice enough to spend a few minutes with us on this Sunday evening. Dave, thanks so much for being here.
I appreciate the offer.
We thought I don't know. I think we were recording whenever we were spitballing on this, Mike, that it would be good to get an AD from school somewhere on the show to talk a little bit about some of the behind the scenes stuff that goes into the local prep sports scene. And we know that Dave has talked to us a little bit about, we know he's watched our show before, so we thought there's a perfect guy. He's already familiar with what we do, and we know he's a hardworking guy. And
let anybody know he watches us, but he watches.
And plus, there's some interesting Effingham High School related stuff going on right now. So we thought he'd be a good guy to get on here. So the first thing I wanted to point out before we go anywhere is that I said activities director and not athletic director. Now, you obviously are the athletic director at Effingham High School, but that's not your entire purview, correct? It's some of the other extracurricular stuff as well.
That's correct. My job as activities director, I help oversee the clubs and the organizations and some of those other events that happen outside of sports. I'm also the junior high athletic director as well. And then, of course, the high school athletic director.
And how long have you been in your role at Effingham for quite a while at this point? I mean, to the point where you're close to retiring. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is I think 28 years there, and then I was at St. Anthony as an athletic director for, I believe, 5 prior to that. So I've been doing it a while, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And Dave, you've put in through TRS notice next year is your last year, is that correct?
That's correct.
Because I knew you have to, there's incentives for you to put that out there early. So
Right.
All right. So the farewell tour is getting ready to commence.
It's obviously there's certain times of year that I have to imagine are more hectic than others. Is that true, or is it pretty much a 12-month grind doing that for Effingham High School?
Well, there's always something that has to be done or going on, and then when you throw things like the turf project in, normally the summer is probably not quite as busy and not as many hours. But once August rolls around with night sports, with volleyball and football, soccer, the days can get pretty long, and then that rolls right into the winter sports, which is basketball. And so, there's lots of days where I'm at school at 7:30 and getting home at 9:30, 10, 12 if we go to Lincoln.
Yeah.
So but they can be pretty long days from August through March. And that's not just me, that's every athletic director, that has supervisory duties at contests and so forth, and still have assignments and duties at school.
Now, you mentioned the turf project, and I want to touch on that.
Why are you stealing the question?
Go for it. Hey,
So
go for it, Mike.
Thursday night, I think it was Thursday night, the family wanted to go out, check out the softball diamond, see if Morgan could practice. He's the assistant coach. And then the lights were on at the football field. Somebody had them on doing some things. And so we walked over, and I will tell you something. It is everything people said it would be, and then some. I tell you what, fits perfect within the complex of everything they've got going on out there. I mean, it's the whole complex is second to none, but beautiful field. We were doing a lap on the track and had invited our initial guest, Larry Wilson, to come out and see this. And Dave happened to get there about the same time. And Dave can attest to this. There was a little dampness in the corner of the eyes of the old Hall of Famer when he saw this. And it's incredible. It is a great field, great facility.
Well, it's been an interesting process, to say the least. It's been kind of a dream of mine for quite some time. I've had turf companies in off and on over the years, and it just never seemed to work out. And just really happy that our school board stepped up, and our upper administration, certainly the sponsors that have contributed in really a short amount of time. It just seemed like this was the right time. Everything kind of came together. And yes, I did notice Uncle Lair. He was definitely feeling the emotions of all those years not being able to call numbers because the uniforms were so dirty.
He's been a proponent of this forever. I mean, he's always like, well, God, we got to help. We got to find a way. I mean, he was nagging me during this whole process. Where can I make a donation? And I said, well, Dad, I don't know. You have to reach out to X or Y. And yeah, he's really excited. And I think you're really going to have some big crowds the first couple of home games, just for people to see it, who don't normally come to your football games, which could be good because maybe now we'll put some more people because we've had good crowds, really good crowds the last few years.
Yes.
I know you've talked about it for a long time, Dave, and it's been something you've wanted to, and I guess, the moon and the stars finally lined up right. And, like I said, it's there and it's perfect.
We've always had a really great atmosphere at our games, which has always been exciting. And I can remember some very memorable games where we were parking people out around the softball diamonds and the baseball diamond and just trying to make sure everybody had a chance. The football moms do a great job with some of the extras, fireworks, and some of those kinds of things. Our band is really good and entertaining. Of course, Coach Hefner's put out a good product since he's been here. He's taken our strong traditional program and made it better. And I'm really excited to be able to see the soccer team out there. We've got several schools now in the conference that have turf fields, and I'm glad we're in the mix now.
Yeah, you mentioned the soccer team, and I think that's a good segue because putting on your AD hat, your guy your responsibilities where you have to look after every program. Tell me how this benefits the school in its entirety, not just the football program, but there's a lot of positives to this project that expand beyond just those football games on Friday nights.
Definitely. And I'll use a football example to demonstrate my point. We were in the semifinal game a couple years ago, and we actually had some snow, and there was about 6 inches of snow on the practice field on Monday, and we were kind of jailed. We couldn't do anything. So for, I think, the first 2 or 3 days of that week, Brett practiced in the gym. And I would relate that to any sport, really. It gives us a space to go to where we can, if it's wet, we can go out there and at least be outside. And certainly band is a good example. There were many times over my tenure that they performed on the track because they didn't want to get their uniforms dirty because the field was so muddy. Soccer, we've had games canceled because it's too wet. Baseball and softball in the spring, those would be great opportunities for them to be able to practice outside, hit some ground balls, throw some long toss, because in Illinois our weather is iffy at times, and as it has been really this whole summer. So I think there's lots of different groups that could take advantage of this turf field. The video board from Nevco is tremendous. It's very similar to the one we have in the gym, except it's even bigger. You think about movie nights, or there's just lots of different activities that could happen out there.
Nice. And you talk about where was I going with this? upkeep. That's what I was going to say. That's what, obviously I'm sure that there is some maintenance that has to happen with the artificial turf, just like there is maintenance that goes into, keeping grass. But I have to imagine that it's a little more uniform. You kind of know what to expect with it, as opposed to, when you have a grass field having to take care of it, you're at the mercy of the elements and the environment and just whatever happens to be going on that week.
Definitely. When the guys came to start digging up the field, they were impressed, and kudos to our maintenance department over the years. I've really had the opportunity to work with some great people who care about sports and they're passionate about it. And that shows in their efforts out on all of our fields, not just the football field, but they were tearing up the turf and they were like, this is incredible. We thought we already put turf in when we were pulling up. So, but yeah, I know they were, because of our program for fertilizer and weed and feed and all those things, you mow it 3 days a week and it usually takes an hour and a half or so to mow it. You got to stripe it, line it, all the chemicals that go on it to make it look good and make it last through the summer, the watering of it, then all the repairs that have to happen tied into all that stuff, So we're going to save our maintenance department many hours really throughout the whole summer, not just during football or soccer or band. It's going to be in the spring and so on, because they still have to mow it even though football's not going on.
Yeah, sure.
Those fall sports. So hopefully they can put that energy then towards different projects. We got a couple things on the back burner right now that we hope to get done next summer. So we'll see how things go.
All right.
Dave, I got a question for you. In your 20 plus years as an athletic director, what's probably the biggest change you've seen in just your sport, I guess, to say?
Well, just like in education, the number of people involved has declined greatly. If we have a teaching opening, 20, 25 years ago, we'd have 120 people apply for them. Now we have 5, 6, 1, maybe 8, depending on the position. And I would say that is true about athletics as well. People, when they were hired as a teacher, we were able to say, we would like you to coach X, Y, Z, and they would usually do that. But now the interviewer or the interviewees now are kind of in the bargaining chair, and it's harder to sometimes get help. So over my tenure, what I've seen a lot more non-certified coaches who are actually teaching also. And I appreciate their efforts. They're usually tremendous people, or they wouldn't be giving their time the way they have over the years and continue to give their time. So we've been blessed. Sometimes it's very hard to find people, but the people we find care about kids, and that's really what's most important.
And that's and I agree with you there from the standpoint, having a head coach who was non-certified, when I say that, a teacher in the building or another administrator in the building, having a head coach was almost unheard of in any sport. Okay. Now you're hard pressed to find a district who's not got at least one head coach, if not in, when you say they're bigger sports, I mean, I'll use the word bigger sports, be with it, baseball, softball, basketball, football, those, somebody in those positions, you're seeing that more common. And then getting your support staff, getting your assistants, getting, your JVs, your fresh softs. It's, I got to say, that's really one thing I've noticed from the outside.
Right. And then the other side of change for me has been the officials situation. It's been extremely difficult over the last 5 years for sure. It got worse when COVID happened because some guys decided not to work. But, as I watch our athletes and our coaches and our fans interact with, during the game. I always try to encourage them to treat everybody with respect, whether it's the opponent or the opposing coach or the officials. Those men and women dedicate themselves to provide the opportunity of high school sports. Let's face it, if they weren't doing that, we would not have sports. So, and the numbers continue to dwindle, and the officials are not getting any younger. So I really have a strong fear of what's going to happen in, 4, 5, 6 years, when these guys that are 60, 65 are retiring. It would be really nice. And Mr. Grace at T-Town and we put together a clinic for the South Central Basketball Officials Association over at T-Town. I was over there, and we're trying to recruit officials, but once we get them, we got to keep them.
Right. I talked to a young man Friday at a golf outing who officiates, and he does, JV's as high as he works right now, fresh off. And I said, hey, you ready to start doing some varsity games? He goes, I don't know. He says, I really don't enjoy watching a varsity game and some of the abuse officials are taking, which it surprised me to an extent, because I sometimes equate a lot of yelling sometimes and being very negative towards officials at lower level games. He says, it's not bad, but he goes, I don't know if I want to do that. And this was a kid that was a really good player in high school and now officiates, and he was iffy about taking that next step. And there's a prime example of a solid young official working his way up, and it'd be great to see him get a taste here and there and see if he would then go on and in the progression become a good young official.
Well, I certainly understand the passion people have, about sports and certainly about their children. But, let's face it, that's probably the only occupation where you have people over your shoulder screaming at you. You don't see that in an office building or a manufacturing building, so hopefully people will start to kind of understand the desperation that athletic directors have in trying to keep officials going and try to recruit new ones.
We had 3 basketball officials on the show here during the middle of basketball season, and they reiterated the same thing. It's just, you're right. You don't, hey, I answer the phone at a doctor's clinic. There's people screaming at me and they only scream at me if I make a mistake one-sided. If I make a mistake the other way, they don't scream at me. So, it's just a case where it's tough and it's hard on an official, and I understand completely, but it almost seems like that's progressed. That type of behavior's progressed more, and I hate to see that aspect of it, but we've got some good young officials coming up through the ranks, and I think we just need to continue that. And I hope this clinic you guys will put on, at least creates 1 or 2, 3 people stepping in and doing it.
Well, and honestly, basketball, although it's low, is not the most desperate. If you do a search for wrestling in Champaign, Effingham, Springfield, Decatur, Mount Vernon, you get like 8 names. So, and there's more than 8 wrestling teams out and about. So it's really even desperate in volleyball. It's certainly desperate in soccer. We're probably going to have to move a game or 2 just because of officials. There's one date in September that I want to say there's 8 games, and there's just not enough officials to cover them all.
And that's an unfortunate thing. You started to see some of that happen in basketball in the last year. And I give schools credit when they say, hey, our Friday night game with X is being postponed because we don't have officials. I mean, they're right. Coming out and saying it.
Yes.
And I appreciate them doing it because I think that it's helps show it. Whitey, I mean, we could cut down on you doing basketball games. You could do a couple wrestling matches.
I maybe need to find a sport where I actually know one thing about it. Okay. because I couldn't tell you one thing about wrestling. I mean, I was getting ready to say, well, Dave getting ready to retire. I know he's had you had a bulky back, right? So maybe you don't want to be running up.
New knees, man. He's like a 20-year-old.
It's his knees.
Like a deer.
I mean, I think both of you guys would look pretty good. Look pretty good in stripes. That's all I'm saying. A couple of knowledgeable sports guys in the area, kind of picking up a second career.
Yeah.
I'd just start having conversations with coaches on the sidelines. I'd get in trouble.
But those are usually the best officials, the ones that are willing to talk to people and listen. And, they're honest. The really good ones say, Coach, I blew that one. Sorry.
Well,
if I was mad at a guy and he said, Coach, I'm going to tell you what, you're right. I missed it. What are you going to say?
That's the thing. When I was in high school, I'm not gonna say that we were completely obnoxious, but we'd go to the ball games and maybe try and get the attention of an official or two. And the guys who would just give it back to you a little bit, you didn't even want to ride him anymore after a while, because you're like, well, this guy's having a good time. He's obviously not trying to get anything wrong, and so. Being disarming does, I think, go a long way, to not getting so much flack. Although I think there are also people that just go to games and they decided before they ever even saw a minute of action that they were going to do some yelling. So that's unfortunate, but that does happen. When I have the headset on, though, I don't hear any of it. It's easy for me to tune out. So, Dave. I want to talk football scheduling a little bit, because I know that has been, you've had to work pretty hard at that recently too. The Apollo has undergone, a lot of changes over the last decade, 15 years or so. It's going to undergo some changes again before too long. I don't know how much of that is going to be your problem, because you're going to be getting to where you're not having to do that anymore. But football scheduling is, it can be a stressful thing, can it?
It's super challenging. And the conferences that are closed, that have 10 schools and everybody has a game every week, it would be much easier. The Apollo has tried to find schools to join, but it's just either a distance issue or it's just the wrong size school for the Apollo schools that are there. But football is kind of a unique thing, because when you're good, nobody wants to play you. When you're bad, everybody wants to play you, because the way the playoff structure is, coaches and ADs are trying to get wins. And our schedule last year and this year is a perfect example. There were lots of schools that were open in the weeks that we were open, but we were in the semifinals not too long ago. And so schools are, not really willing to, you're their last option type thing. Now our football schedule is done certainly this year and then the next 2 years. And, we were able to get some, what I feel like fair competition.
Yeah.
But, that is going to be an issue moving forward. You want to be great. Every kid that plays football, every coach that coaches football wants to have winning seasons and get to the state finals and so on. But then that creates more challenges with scheduling for sure.
Is there some, I assume that there's input from the head coach too. I mean, there's got to be conversations between you guys as far as what's available and what the preferences are.
Absolutely. That happens, particularly when we were trying to get our 23-24 schedules squared away. Brett and I were having daily conversations about, well, who do we think's open? He was looking from his end from the Illinois Football Coaches Association website. I'm looking on my end from the IDA website. And, it's just a collaboration to try to get a schedule that we can compete. We don't necessarily have to beat everybody every time, but we want to be able to compete in the games.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, these last couple of years have been difficult just because of the nature of the schools that we're playing. And kudos to them. good programs, but you know, you want to have a schedule that is related to your school.
Yeah, and that's got to, like you said, with football, that's tough because you're limited. Okay, we got 18 games or whatever. Basketball, I know it's not 18 anymore, but you're like, okay, I can do this now. I can do this. Okay, yeah, we'll take on, you know, if we're a 2A school, we'll take on a 4A school just to give us that opportunity. Well, in football, that can be the difference for making the playoffs or not.
Absolutely.
So you don't have that opportunity.
And honestly, one of my major frustrations is, you know, the IHSA and the voting members of the IHSA, which are essentially the principals in most cases, but, you know, they voted to pass this new playoff structure to where almost every school got in. And I really feel like I don't understand why we treat football differently than every other sport. You can be a wrestler and wrestle against the top wrestlers in the state, and then go to your regional, which might be smaller schools, and you could be very successful. Or, I mean, there have been times where schools have been 12 and 15 at the state basketball tournament, but it's because they had a tough schedule. Football's totally different than every other sport we have. And that's a frustration for me too. I wish we would have, you know, instead of opening it up again and voting again and then reversing that decision before it even happened, I wish we would have at least tried it. And if it didn't work, fine. But that's really the major reason why a lot of these conference changes happen.
Mhm.
You know, everybody is scrambling around to try to get 5 football wins. And there's always somebody at the bottom. And when I mean bottom, I'm not talking about the bottom as talent. I'm talking about the bottom of enrollment. And you see that all over every part of the state, unless there is a unique situation where you have the perfect group of teams. But, you know, and that's kind of what happened to the Apollo when we lost our 4 schools, Newton, Olney, Robinson, and Paris. You know, they were frustrated about, you know, being able to get 4 wins. And I think Olney has benefited from going to a different conference because they've made the playoffs a few times. Paris certainly has. In fact, we played Paris the year we were in the semifinals. So it's just a little frustrating that the state has allowed this to, you know, football to become this unicorn that we treat differently than every other sport.
Yeah, because that's all those decisions are football driven. And you know, maybe it's just because I'm been paying attention more these, you know, as an adult as opposed to whenever I was in school, but it just feels like the rotational aspect of these conferences, teams moving in and out, it seems like it's a lot more common now than maybe it was, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. Is that just in my head, or is there a lot less stability than there used to be?
Well, I can say this, and Mike certainly can relate to this. You know, when we were in our previous conference, the Mid-State Conference, which was Vandalia, Greenville, Taylorville,
Hillsboro,
Litchfield, Pana. My junior year, we were in the Mid-State Conference, but I think it was during my sophomore year when I believe it was Mr. Marvel and whoever the principal was at Taylorville.
During your junior year when it blew up.
Yeah, they go to a conference meeting and everybody's sitting around the table and they say, well, I'd like to make a motion that we dissolve the Mid-State Conference. And all of a sudden everybody's voting, and all of a sudden we don't have a conference anymore, which is why we ended up in the Apollo to begin with. And when we went to the Apollo, you know, it was Charleston and Taylorville they were going to go with us, I believe, but it was Decatur, Lakeview, and Mount Zion, and Robinson, and it was a good mix of schools. But then you have a couple schools close, and then, you know, this whole playoff structure impacts kind of where people are at now. So hopefully the state can figure something out, or the principals, or however it needs to happen. My opinion is they need to take the football playoff structure out of the bylaws and put it in policy, which is where every other sport is located. And then you don't have to have a vote. You can vote on taking it out of the bylaws, and then it's policy, which if you think about the state playoff structure for basketball, that didn't require a vote. The state just changed it and said, here's what we're doing.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot going on there, and it's sad for kids. Lincoln is leaving our conference after this year. The sad part, they're a perfect fit. Everything about them is perfect, except they have a minimum of an hour and 45-minute drive to every conference team except Taylorville. And for us, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes for them. They're taking a charter bus usually because most of their trips are that distance. Their kids get home at 11:30, 12, 1 in our case. And it's been hard on their kids, but it's terrible because their kids are a perfect fit for our conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just tough to be a school this size in this part of the state. I think it's so the proper enrollment schools are so spread out in the southern half of the state that there just aren't a lot of perfect situations, unfortunately.
Yeah, that we're kind of in that small fish in the.
Well, now Dave said that his internet was a little wonky. So we may have butted up against that finally. We got a good half hour out of him. We can give him a chance to reconnect and see if that happens. But
text him.
I'll tell you what, I will I'm going to pause the recording here.
Okay.
And we will pick this back up and give Dave at least a chance for a proper sign off. So I'm going to pause this, and then we will be back in just a moment. All right, we got Dave back. He warned us before he jumped on that his Wi-Fi in his house is a little balky today. So Dave, you were saying something about small fish, and that was about the time that you cut off.
Yeah, whether we're talking basketball or football or really any of our sports, usually whatever class we fall into, we're usually on the smaller end of that class structure. And basketball is a good example. It's us, and we're in with the Decatur schools and Springfield schools, and so it's a little bit different participation level. Especially for some of those type schools, but our kids are going to compete. Our coaches are going to push them, and there'll be times where we're successful.
Yeah.
In every sport, really. So, like I said, I'm just happy our coaches do what they do, and they care about the kids, and certainly the kids work hard for them.
Well, Dave, we don't want to keep you too much longer, but we wanted to make sure you got a proper send off from the show, not just a drop call there. But what in the time that you got left working at Effingham, what do you any goals you're hoping to accomplish? Anything you're working toward, or is it just trying to make sure that the table is set for whoever is your predecessor or your successor?
I know he's trying to get the Christmas tournament to like 48 teams. That's other than that.
Well, really, when I got hired, we were still playing football at the old high school field, and we've added quite a few sports since, I've been involved. Not that it was solely my idea, but, it takes somebody to do all the busy work for that. So what I would like to see happen, I would like to see our outdoor facilities are, aging, and, Mr. Fox and I think the board's been involved a little bit, and Mr. Johnson, trying to look at improving some of our facilities. We redid tennis recently. We've resurfaced the track. We've done football and soccer. So we've done a little bit of work on softball, but really I'd like to kind of improve the other softball diamond and the two baseball facilities. They're certainly not bad, but they are getting to where we need to do something with them. In a great long-term goal would be to figure out a way that we could turf those. But, you know, I understand the money structure is what it is. And, but then certainly trying to make sure things are taken care of for the next few years so that whoever comes in won't have to spend a lot of time doing that. Because there is a lot more that goes into being an AD than just what people see at the games.
Sure.
Whether it's hiring coaches, ordering supplies, the supply chain issue is a big issue now. Some of the things we ordered back in May are not going to get here in time. But you push and try to do what you can do to resolve problems, and hopefully people appreciate that.
And you've been on the job for as long as you mentioned 28 years at Effingham, I think you said, and you fall into a rhythm, right? And so it'll be a lot. You want to make that smooth on ramp for the next person, but it's just going to be different for them just because you've had your way of doing things for such a long time. But it is a good rhythm, and I mean, everything always runs so smoothly at Effingham. That's the one thing I notice. I go to a lot of schools, see a lot of programs in action, and I can say that everything's always well mapped out at Effingham. They've always got it all us taken care of real well, and just a professional operation. And I hope that's a compliment that you take and that you understand that's given. I got a lot of respect for what you do.
Well, I appreciate that. And thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about important things for our kids.
Well, thank you, David. And, I'd be remiss in saying, this Christmas tournament we worked together on got the 16 teams pretty quickly and has really become, I think, a premier event. And you've been, significantly instrumental in pulling that all together. And, your laundry skills, we haven't had to replace any uniforms on your side of the brick. So, you've upped us there, but, yes, you do a wonderful job. Dave and I go way, way, way back. So, appreciate you being on, and, try to get a little fishing done before football starts.
Well, I don't know if I'll have time for that, but I'll work hard for a couple of years, and then hopefully I'll have a little time for fishing.
There you go.
Sounds good. Well, Dave Woltman, thanks so much for joining us. Mike, unless you got anything else,
I just want to, you and I have about a 10-minute wrap up. Maybe
okay. All right. Well, we can let Dave go. He doesn't have to listen to that crap, but we appreciate you taking the time. I'll bet we could probably figure out a way to get you on here one more time at some point before retirement. I'm sure something will come up. Maybe give you and Mike a little more chance to talk about the old days. Like you said, you guys go way back, so maybe that's just a show in and of itself. You two can just tell some stories or something like that.
Good.
All righty. Sounds good.
Little teaser for next time. All right, we'll let Dave hang up, and we will, Mike, you and I will wrap things up. I know that we've got one guest upcoming that we've got scheduled. Brett Hefner, the Effingham football coach. Who you heard?
That's been Whitey. I know you told me, but
yeah, I'm looking it up right now. Let's see. Looking at my email.
I think I actually put it on my calendar. Oh, August 21st.
August 21st, 2 weeks from tonight. Yeah. Coach Hefner's going to come on and preview the Effingham High School football season.
We started last year kind of middle-ish.
Yeah, we didn't.
Fall season.
Yep, football games were going on, but we didn't get a chance to preview it proper the way we did for basketball and for baseball and softball. So yeah, we'll give. And Brett was very agreeable to come on. Didn't have to twist his arm,
Good.
So that'll be good. Obviously, I'll be at all the football games, and the aforementioned Larry Wilson, he'll be out there at he'll be out there at the.
Planning on being in attendance. I do know that. Or that's his game plan initially. So
Washington Savings Bank Stadium, Klosterman Field at Washington Savings Bank Stadium. It's a little bit more of a mouthful for us media types. They're going to have to say that out loud a lot. But
I'm also excited, Whitey. You get to do a little taste of play-by-play this year.
That's the talk. Although the logistics,
it'll happen.
Greg was asking me back in May, like how we wanted to do that, and I still haven't really quite figured out how we'll do the trade-off. But
you actually just change chairs, so he can do this. He can do your crazy.
Well,
all your
I think,
stats.
I think it's the stats thing that it still takes a little working out. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't want to make it sound like what I do is simple, but I've got a pretty good system to where I think I could call the action and still write down my stats at the same time. Maybe we try a couple drives that way.
We'll have to worry about muddy uniforms at home, so you've got that advantage.
Yeah, and it will be a home game to start the season. St. Teresa is coming to Effingham this time. If you Effingham went to St. Teresa, went to Decatur last year to open the season, and that was a really good team. And we'll maybe that's something probably we'll save more for our talk with Coach Hefner as far as talking about the teams that are on the schedule a little bit. But
Greg Sapp have to crawl through a window there.
That's what I was getting ready to say, is that they hadn't. I mean, the vantage point was good. Okay, it was a good vantage point to call a game from, but getting to it required a nimbleness, an agility level that challenged even me, a slightly younger man. We went into a classroom and had to climb through a window to get out on a ledge on the building. And the problem is that you climbing out this window on one side, the floor is here. Okay. And then whenever you're getting out on the other side, all of a sudden what you're dropping down to is down here. And so it was very awkward. And listen, I'm not complaining, because they were super nice, had a place for us, helped us get the equipment there, all that stuff. It was a little physically challenging. Let's just say that.
Nimbleness and agility are two words that show up on Wikipedia if you look up Greg Sapp.
Yeah, I'm sure Greg's going to be happy to be at home. I look at this schedule real quick, and the road games this year are at Mahomet, at Mattoon, at Lincoln, and at Highland. Now, I have not been to Highland. I've not been to Highland for football, but those other three places, Lincoln, Mattoon, Mahomet, great visiting press facilities, all of them. They take good care of people. So we're going to be doing well, because the press box at Klosterman Field is, I mean, something I should have said to Dave too. I mean, I know, and again, he's
quality.
I mean, it's people come to Effingham and they get treated right, and they have a good place to work from. They can just do their job. They don't have to worry about, is it going to rain? Do I have a place to sit? Can I see the field? Can I hear the PA announcer? We don't, those are things that don't happen at Effingham. So
your stand clean. You don't have to think about those things.
I will say this, Mount Zion has cleaned it up a little bit. We're still outdoors, but at least we're not 15 feet off the ground. What's that?
Till you're covered, they don't get credit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go too far, but it is better. And he mentioned turf. I mean, at this point, you're right. Most of the Apollo schools have it at this point, I think.
Does Muhammad have it?
Muhammad does not, but Muhammad's got a nice. At least Muhammad didn't the last time I was there. So
yeah, they got that black dirt. They got carpet.
Taylorville's got it. Mattoon's going to have it. Mount Zion's got it. Does Lincoln? I don't know if Lincoln does or not. Don't know about Lincoln. It's not going to matter.
Basketball court, but they don't have it on their football field.
But Mater Dei, one of your non-conference opponents, they've had it for years. So
we could have one more show before we have Coach Hefner.
Okay, that would be next.
Do like a 1 year retrospective, even though it's not officially 1 year, but it would be close.
Sure. Yeah.
Do something like that.
We got to figure out a way to sucker people into watching that, because when we have a guest, generally the numbers, the views are better when it's just the two of us. So I'm wondering, what's the gimmick? How do we get people to be invested in that? I was thinking, maybe Mike Wilson sings a song at some point in the middle of the show, does a little karaoke, something like that.
In high school, I could do a little Deborah Harry, Heart of Glass.
Boy, I don't know if that sounds amazing or terrible, but
we've lost our only listener there. I don't know. I don't want to say, we're going to have an awards, because I don't want to say, yes, we've had. I don't want to do that, but no, it'd be. We're almost a year, because when did we do our first show?
Well, I could tell you that too. I should be able to go down the list right here.
I think it was in September.
I'm looking up right now. It was September 13th. September 13th, 2021.
Larry Wilson started their 17-game winning streak.
Yeah, there it is. I'm looking at it right now. Larry Wilson and Mike Wilson sitting next to each other in the younger Wilson's basement. So there you go. We've been at it almost a year. Yeah, that would be a good one. We get together. We just talk a little bit about who we've been fortunate enough to talk to, and
I'll tell you what, a couple things. In the warped brain of mine, I'm actually maybe kind of reaching outside of our pay grade for a couple people, but I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, you never know. It never hurts to ask, especially if it's you doing the asking. So,
they can't kick you. They can only shout obscenities at me or something. But no, I'm not to that point.
We'll play it by ear, but yeah, another school year getting ready to start, I think it's going to be an interesting football season for Effingham. I'm interested to hear what Coach Hefner has to say, because I think without getting too deep a dive on it, you look at the schedule, and last year all we talked about on the radio is how tough the schedule was, and that's just it was, and that's run into years like that. A lot of those schools graduated some pretty talented players, but I still think it's going to be a pretty good.
Well, if I remember right, a lot of your linemen were young last year who are back now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Effingham's got reason to be optimistic this year, and I'm usually one of these guys that doesn't. I'm always a little uncertain about football. How good are they going to be? I'm never really sure, and I tend to err on the side of caution and say I'm not real sure how good it's going to be. But this year, I think I'm going to say I think going 4-5 on that schedule they had last year. That record doesn't look fantastic, but boy, they were playing some killers last year.
Oh, they did. Yeah, they
did. So we'll see. You're yawning over there. You've had a long day.
I'm tired. I spent a lot of time, Mitch Custer and I almost ran this whole reunion today. Actually, our wives were in charge, so we were just grunt workers. But our side of the story will be we put on the whole thing, and it was warm.
Well, I'll tell you, I've had a really stressful day of sitting in church, and then I think the most work I did after that was driving to Mattoon to pick up some Jersey Mikes. Other than that, a lot of air conditioning for Dustin White today.
Well, I wish I could say the same. Oh, and the best thing is, Whitey, golf practice starts tomorrow morning.
I wanted to tell you, when we had Jordan Lieberge on.
How'd you play?
Yeah, we had our 20th class reunion, and we went and played at Meadowview. It was a scramble. So we were on 4-person teams. And I told the guys in my group before we started, I was like, I went to a range 2 times this week. And that is the extent of picking up a golf club for me in at least the last decade. So if we get one shot out of me that counts all all day long, I am going to consider it a success. And let me tell you something, Mike. I hit that first tee shot right down the damn middle of the fairway, and we played it.
Did you just go back in the cart and grab a beer and say you were done?
Well, I did go back to the cart. I didn't grab a beer till the back nine. I waited because it was an 8:00 tee time. So I was like, I got to get my coffee drank
5
first.
o'clock somewhere, Whitey. Come on.
Well, let me tell you something. By the time 5:00 rolled around that day, I was about ready to.
I offered to spend a little time with you on the range, buff out a few spots.
I didn't want to waste anyone's time because I really thought it was a lost cause. But I got to tell you, I played like 100 times better than I thought I was going to. The putting was not good. The putting was bad, but
I can fix that.
I was striking the ball a lot better than I would have ever thought. I did not lose a single ball. 18 holes, did not hit one that I couldn't find. So there you go.
Practice starts tomorrow. Our first match is Friday. And then we turn around and play again Monday. So we got 2 matches, 12th and 15th. We're St. Anthony Invitational on Friday over at Van Burentsburg. We went over and tried to play a little practice round. I took 8 kids over maybe a month ago. And I know it's hard to believe. We got about 9 holes in. It started just downpour raining. So, so yeah, but our goal is to take another step this year as a team and be competitive for a postseason spot moving on to the sectional. I've kind of put that out there to the kids. We, one individual last year, now we want to go as a team, and we'll have to see. And good measuring stick. Last year, the first tournament, St. Anthony beat us by 87 strokes, first tournament. And I may or may not have little note cards in the van when we go over with the number 87 on them, and we'll see who can figure out what that is. They probably won't, because here's the best part. Last year when we're going, we have a little breakfast, country kitchen about 6:15, get in the bus, we're driving. Text George Flexter, he dedicates a song to us as we're tooling down the interstate, and it was Start Me Up. Mm-hmm. Okay. So he didn't. He says, this is going out to the T-Town basketball team. Or T-Town golf team. They're on their way to the first match. And he didn't say the name of the band. All right, kids, who is it? They had to get on their phone to figure out who sang Start Me Up. I was disappointed. We almost stopped.
Mike, I mean, listen, I don't know. It's a sad fact of life that
it's not like I pulled a Talking Head song out of my archives. It was the Stones.
I could, and that's probably good too, because I can't think of anything that would get me less fired up than a Talking Heads song. I gotta be honest with you.
Come on, Dustin.
Actually, and when I was playing last weekend, I thought that would be an interesting conversation too, a golf course manager, because it blows my mind how manicured that is. And then I look at my yard and what an absolute wasteland it is, and how I can't
have hundreds of people walking through your yard swinging sticks every day.
Yeah, it's something else. That's a good conversation. But yeah, best of luck to the T-Town golfers. I'm sure despite the leadership, they will show lots of improvement this year. And
I'm excited. I really am. The kids have spent more time this summer hitting balls, and that's how you get better than they ever have since I've had them in 5 years. They've played a lot on their own, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think that sport, more than anything, it's the reps, right? Like, it's just putting the work in. And I tell my daughter that with her pitching lessons all the time. Like, pitching is softball pitching. It's repetition. It's doing it over and over again until you don't have to think about it anymore. And I think a good golf swing is the same way, right? Like, it just has to be smooth and it has to be repeatable. So there you go.
That's what we're working on. So I've got some young men. I'm excited. We got a little depth. That's a plus. So should be a fun year. It all starts tomorrow, and all the other fall sports that start tomorrow. Good luck. Have fun. Those poor cross country kids are going to be out like 6:30 running.
It'll still be miserable.
Look out for the deer. Oh, I know it's going to be horrible.
Yeah. Don't envy them. I don't envy them.
4-letter word. So that's my motto.
Yep. Well, with that, I think we'll try and sign off before you try to get any Cardinals talk in here? We'll save that all for the pre-recording off the air stuff. I know you're feeling
I loved
good
every
about
trade they made. I just say that I love, and that's before things happened. I thought those were great.
Yeah. Well, baseball postseason, unfortunately, the way they've got it all set up now, it's almost preordained by now who's going to be in the postseason. But
I haven't looked at how that works because I know that there's 3 wild cards. So the best wild card kind of gets a bye and the other 2 play the 1-game deal still.
sort of, yeah, that's more or less it. It's a little different. I would be lying to you if I said I knew exactly how it worked. I'm still in the, although losing 4 out of 5 to the Mets this weekend, I probably better start thinking more about the Braves being a wild card team than a division winner. But I had some hope they weren't going to have to think about that too much. But yeah.
2-game lead now in the Central.
What's that?
2-game lead in the Central now.
Yeah. Yeah, the Brewers, man. I don't understand the Brewers, but that's another conversation for another day. So,
all
right, we'll talk to you next week. We'll do a year in review, almost a year in review, and then 2 weeks from today, Brett Hefner, and then we'll have football games to start talking.
Oh,
man,
we may have to talk to golf coaches. Who knows what we're going to talk about?
Who knows? Mike Wilson's got up.
We're going to try to do a better job of getting results from other sports.
Yep, we'll do our dead level best. It's, we've all got our day jobs to do, but we'll talk about as much as we can. So we're gonna sign it off for now. Next week we'll be right back at it. So take it easy, Mike.
See you, bud.